This particular VOD or whatever you want to call it, I would have recorded it and edited it, like done it as a proper video, but I'm sure I've explained before. Just got a bit of storage issues, which at this point, I just need to get bigger storage. Is basically it. Anyway, so on to the subject, which is remasters and remakes. I guess this could be in light of the recent, you know, GTA, the trilogy, the definitive edition. Um, so for me, it's all well and good for companies wanting to, make remasters and remakes. Sorry, I've got Google up. I didn't know what to use as a backdrop. Um, and yeah, I don't blame companies for wanting to, uh, do a remasters or a remake of a game. And I certainly don't blame them if they want to go the safer route of remastering or remaking, their popular titles or trilogies, series, franchise, etc., you name it. The If we was to look back over even just a couple of years, but we can even go back a little bit further. You know, when you have remasters such as the Crash Bandicoot and Insane Trilogy, even Spyro the Dragon, I think even further than that, Abe's Odyssey had a remaster technically, uh, and they were brilliant. Even more recently, the Mass Effect, uh, you know, trilogy had some sort of remaster. And when you look at, again, like Rockstar or rather Take Two, and you look at Blizzard when they did Warcraft 3 Reforged, I do wonder how the process of again, like with Blizzard and Rockstar, how they come to the process of doing remasters and remakes, and how they allocate their time and resources to them. Um, yeah, there's always that whole capitalism thing of like, what can we get away with for maximum profit? But even in the case of Blizzard with the World of Warcraft game, there's just this big issue where if you don't put in quality content, you know, or you don't craft it as best they can be, um, players are just gonna take a look at it and be like, nothing there for me. See ya. Uh, so you, trying to think. Take a look at Resident Evil 2 remake. Hell, take a look at Resident Evil 1 remake that Capcom did. Right? Now, Resident Evil 1 especially, like, so when they remade it or remastered that, there was content from the original game that they had to cut out because of like maybe technological constraints and maybe time constraints that they had to cut from that original game way back when, but then they've re-added it for the remaster, and they've even touched up some stuff and remained as faithful as possible to the original. Now, obviously, the voice acting and the action sequence. Well, I wouldn't say action sequence, like the cinematics, the cutscenes, and things like that. better quality and things like that. They remain faithful. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, fantastic. Um, so it makes me wonder, with the popular games, like the popular remaster or the remasters of popular games, you know, while yes, the companies make them to, not only, whatever their reason to give back or say thank you or whatever, if they don't take the time to, put in a little bit more effort, then, you know, again, players are just going to be like, nah, not interested. See you later, and that they've tarnished more than just those get the games that they've released. They tarnish their reputation. Uh, they tarnish the people that came before them and things like that. So it's kind of like, I mean, because there's always going to be a disparity between older players and newer players. So in regards to the GTA 3 remaster, or not GTA 3, but the GTA trilogy remasters, the older people who've already played the originals, would probably just see what it's about, you know, um, and if it's not up to, what they grew up with or whatever, then they're not interested. Whereas newer players would be like, that's all they will ever know is what that remaster or remake is like. So, you know, then they'll lose new people, they'll lose new players and attracting new fans. Uh, what would be pretty cool though is if there's still game developers and things like that, but way back, like since the 90s, who are still in the industry, it would be cool to see remasters or remakes of a older game that was perhaps ahead of their time and perhaps would fare better in today's market. There's two in particular that I had in mind, and it's two games I always bring up because I feel like they deserve it. So one is Machines Wired for War. It's an RTS game, but it's effing brilliant. Uh, it looks dated as hell. It came out in 1999, but it's so unique and brilliantly done. It's a very, it's a twist on the RTS genre, especially back in the day. So yeah, I mean, it looks dated as hell now, but it's more of the fact that with resources you have to use a locator to locate the resources. It's not just readily available. Once you've found one, use a mine to extract what's there, and use a transporter to transport it from the mine to your smelter to then be used. Um, and the fact that you have to research units and there's like branches that you can go into. Um, it is a very fun game to play, and even though it is a game that certainly can be quick games to play, it's more of the longer side of games. The other game that I would like to see is called Metal Fatigue. And this particular game, again, it's another RTS, but it's not like with standard tanks and just normal things like that. This game came out in 2000, and again, it's unique in the way that you have robots. You can build and customize your own robots, steal parts from other teams to build yourself, things like that. Unfortunately, it never got a sequel, um, but it's another fun game, and it's again it's one of those ones that um, is more of the longer duration, so it takes longer to do, and that's partly because it takes place. The combat takes place on 3 layers. So you have like the orbit of the planet. You get on the surface, and you even get the underground as well. And they'll it adds more of a strategy to them. So those the two games I just mentioned are very much more of the uh, they generally just take longer. They're a lot of fun because certainly with Metal Fatigue, when you build your own units, they have their own defenses, their own offensive capabilities, so you can sort of so it's not just about what has the most health and what's the most destructive weapon. Sometimes someone might build something that's like very heavy on offensive, but they can get like outplayed by someone who's probably a balance, if not slightly more defensive. So it is like one of them things where it's just like, well, it's a shame that they couldn't do anything uh, with it, that they couldn't remaster it, because again, it was early days back then, and they're probably ahead of the time. When Metal, it makes me laugh because in one of the magazines, like gaming magazines that I read, certainly back when the game was released, um, probably like a few months down the line, another game, Ground Control or something, was being made, and even though Metal Fatigue had been released earlier, people, the reviewers were saying how lazy the company of Metal Fatigue were because of like day and night system and things like that. It just wasn't commonplace. It was probably newer technology and just budget restraints or something. Yeah, remake of this would be the best game ever. It just would be. And in today's sort of market, I do think a sort of a break from doing popular games would be a refreshing period, I think. And it the problem with doing like companies doing remakes and remasters of their popular franchises is that they they run the risk of just tarnishing everything that they've built themselves, upon up until that point. Um, if they don't put in the effort or anything like that, if they don't fix problems ASAP, they've tarnished everything that they built upon to that point. It's almost like a last ditch effort and a lot of riding on it. So this is why I brought up the Resident Evil 1 remake and things like that, because it was absolutely faithful to the original. It still added new content, changed things up a little, so it's not so veterans of the franchise don't easily beat it. Added new challenges and things like that to give it more replayability, and it's done right. Even Resi 2 remake, and it's got to make you wonder why companies and whatnot like Capcom can do remakes and remasters far better than their rivals can. It's not like you're reinventing the wheel. It's not like you're discovering fire over again. You just got to remain faithful for the most part. So that's pretty much, I think, all I wanted to say. I think, like remastering the two old games. Like I say, if there's any old developers that worked on either game, if it's at all possible to at least try to get those two games remastered, I think it'd be brilliant because they're even even Giant Citizen Kabuto. That's a game I've recently picked up again to play online, and I'd loved it. It's a blast from the past, I have to admit, and that's another game that could do with a remaster. You know, see if I can find it. Yeah, these old games, which again, these old games, just absolutely brilliant, and I think they'll do so well in today's market. But I can't stress enough, though, that they have to be faithful and they have to be done right and done with great care. Because the last, it's one thing. It's hard to really explain what I'm about to say, but popular games, sure, if they're done well, then and been taken great care with, brilliant. And even with, in the case of the Capcom stuff, like I said, you're going to make a lot of people happy. They're going to enjoy it a lot more. They're going to be big fans, even bring in new fans. But these older ones, again, I just feel like these old games deserve a remaster, and especially for those who did work on these games, if they've ever planned to ever have a sequel, this is what I'm saying. If you've taken great care of these, if remasters were to come about of these, please take good care of them. Especially that if there's any old developers that may have worked on these original games, because if you've hoped for sequels and stuff, get them done right, you'll attract a lot of new fans and perhaps even be able to make sequels and become a franchise perhaps, or a trilogy if you just want the rule of three. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video, and those on Twitch who may be watching, comment what you think, what games you would like to see remastered, and I'll see if I can find it to play on stream at some point. Alright guys, thanks for listening. I shall see you again.